I'm pretty sure we have to change pharmacies now after our most recent trip.
Oh, why is that?
So I guess maybe people on the podcast might know this about me, but certainly regular other people wouldn't. I have this tendency to make snide comments under my breath.
And
Generally, they are for the amusement of you. Like that's the audience is an audience of one. I'm trying to make you laugh.
Sometimes you're not even trying to make me laugh. It's just you. You're just ranting.
Correct. Yeah. In this case, I wasn't actually trying to make you laugh. But so we went to pick up your copious amounts of drugs.
Yes.
To try and get over your sickness.
We are both very sick, but I have the joy of having asthma. So anytime I get anything respiratory, it just tends to affect me way more than it does Daniel. So yes, I finally broke down, went to the doctor, had to get some prescriptions. And then we took our journey to the pharmacy.
So it's like, I'm not going to go through everything you got, but you got 3 or 4 things. I don't remember what it was, how many. And
a little cocktail.
One of the items was a liquid.
Yes.
Cough syrup.
Cough syrup, decongestant
and
stuff.
They didn't, we roll through, we ask them for your stuff, they hand it to us, it's missing. So we have to be like, tap on the thing.
Even though my text said it was ready. So we were like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's go get stuff now.
So we had to ask them, hey, where's the cough medicine? And they're like, oh, he's still working on it. Give him a second. And after she said, I guess normally they leave the station.
Yeah, she didn't.
She didn't. And so I just kind of looked down in my lap and was like, what did I said, what's he got to do? Pour it out of the jug?
He said, how long does it take to pour it out of the big jug? And then I'm looking up and a girl, I don't know if she's a pharmacy tech or what, she just starts like cracking up. And I'm like, oh, great. I was like, you realize she just heard you.
I'm not even sure why the word jug came to my mind in that moment. Because, I know.
Like vial, bottle, instead you had just like a jug of cough syrup.
I bet you. No, it's a bulk. All they're doing in that amount of time is taking a larger liquid volume
and
pouring some of it off into a smaller liquid.
You're going to install all the pharmacists to the world?
No, I'm not. But how long does that take? And also...
Why did you say my stuff was ready when it wasn't?
Why did you? And also, you know what? The more I think about it, I bet if we went and saw what it was originally in, I bet jug is the most appropriate term.
It probably is like a jug. Just the way you said it very Appalachian. You're like, what does he have to do?
Well, I can't help that.
How long does it take to pour it out of the jug?
I can't help that I said it Appalachian. That is just who I am. Hey, everybody. Welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel. She is Hope. This is episode 53.
53. We looked it up before we started.
And here we are. January. Again, it's still.
Literally the worst month ever. It's cold. The last time I was like, oh, it hasn't snowed here yet. It decided to snow.
Since, yes.
And then some. And then some more. It's to the point, like, usually the first kind of big snow of the year, I'm like, oh, that's pretty. But this time I was really sick. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm sick of it now.
Well,
like, go away. I'm done. It's bright. It blinds my eyes when I go outside.
This time it was snow coupled with that really cold
yeah,
front
cold.
that came through. And so, like, every time I got to take the dog out, it's not just put on some shoes and take the dog out. It's
like
get my sweatshirt, get my coat on, put my boots on.
And our dog loves the cold.
He loves it.
Marvin loves the cold. Like, in the summertime, he'll be like, let's get in the house. Which he is, he's a little black dog all covered in fur here. So, probably it's a lot hotter for him in the summer, obviously. But even last year, where we had that which was even colder than this cold spell, it was like in the negatives. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, my animals wanted to go right back inside.
Nah.
Marvin was like, I'm spinning like a ballerina.
We spent a good, at one point, I timed it. I actually got my phone out and just hit go on the timer. He stuck his face in the snow in one spot and just sniffed. And I couldn't see his eyes
snack time
for 2 minutes straight before he came up for air.
He thinks it's like snacks. And then when it turns to that icy stuff, he's like, ooh, my yard is full of ice cubes.
Yeah, he was trying to eat them.
So January, the worst. We have been sick since we got back from our marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Me a little sicker than you, but...
Yeah, I got over it without visiting the pharmacy, which is pretty common for me.
But, you don't have asthma, so...
That's true.
Just kind of... It's been like, brutal. Like, I gotta say, it hasn't been great. The sickness. We'll call this the one where they all get sick.
Well, the hard part for me was, again, I probably would have been better 2 or 3 days earlier if it wasn't for the cold, because my office is in the basement of our house. And it's when we got, I think my first day back from work after we got done at the marathon, it was like 50 down there. Like I have a thermometer right above my desk, and it was 50 degrees. And that space heater, I finally was able to get up to like 63 today with help from the space heater.
Even I've been like, I'm the type of person I want to be in like shorts and a t-shirt like year round when I'm inside my home, of course. And I've had to throw on like my Spirit jerseys. I'm finally getting good use on all the Disney Spirit jerseys I buy. I've got like 50 million. Because even I've been like pretty cold, and I think I've felt colder because I haven't felt well. We actually did a poll on our We Watch TV podcast Instagram. Follow us on Instagram if you don't already.
It's at We Watch TV podcast.
Yes.
On Instagram.
And it was, does anyone actually like the month of January? Only one person answered yes. So you guys are on the right track. The other answer, the winning answer was no, it's the worst at 50%. And then no, because it feels like 6 months, got 33% of the votes. That is what I would agree with. That January just always feels so long. Like even when we do fun stuff, like we went to Disney, we ran the marathon.
It seems like forever ago.
It really does. It feels like, I feel like it's been like not quite 2 weeks yet.
Yeah.
And I think being sick doesn't help with that, and feeling cruddy in the cold, but it just really feels like a long time ago. And then I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like, oh wow, so February is soon, but I'm like, we still got to you just know that's going to drag. January is just always a drag.
Speaking of a drag, I don't know. I think we like the shows that we've been watching lately.
Yeah, I think
unless you
so
wanted
too.
to flip it and do the OC first. Oh, that would. Oh man, I should have done that. That would have been a great trans. Speaking of a drag,
we'll go to the OC rewatch at the end as usual.
I'm off on my game. So
speaking of a drag, you know what's a drag? When you start to really get into a show, and then you got to succumb to the weekly release, and then there's only a couple episodes left, and that show is Percy Jackson and the Olympians on Disney Plus. We got some commentary from a listener saying it seemed like that we didn't like it from our conversation last week. I don't think we...
It's not that we didn't like it, it's that we hated it.
No. I think like we were complaining about like how we thought the gods were terrible people.
Yeah.
For screwing the humans, so we don't like those people in it. So maybe, I don't know. Like I said, we don't have any familiarity with the books. Are we supposed to root for the gods?
I guess that's the question. If we're supposed to like the gods,
they're not doing a good
job. They're doing
of
a
it.
terrible job.
Very poor
I don't think that's not the. I'm not getting that idea.
I
that we're
liked
supposed
the
to like
Lin-Manuel
them.
Miranda's character, the god that he plays, Hermes.
Yeah.
And that was in the most recent episode. But it's hard not to like any character that Lin-Manuel
Well, you
Miranda
liked
doesn't play.
Ares.
Yeah, I did like Ares. So he's a god too.
You liked him in a sense that you were enjoying the time he was on
and
screen.
I feel like we're
reason.
probably supposed to hate Ares. Like he's the one that you're supposed to hate. And I was like the god of war. And I'm like, I love this guy. He's funny. So no, like I felt like we talked about that we were enjoying Percy Jackson, but we were complaining about the gods. So I'm like, if I'm supposed to like the gods, they've got like 2 more episodes to sell me on it.
So we watched the 5th episode and the 6th episode. And
both
now we are
the best of the season.
Yeah, they are.
I thought the 5th one was better than the 6th one. That was with Ares. They had to get his shield back for some reason.
Yeah, from a weird creepy
because he was
park.
hooking up with Aphrodite. Who is she? Just the goddess that just is screwing everybody?
I think they're all screwing everybody.
I guess so. And then all the humans, and then they want to blame everybody else for their problems. Like, come on, people, have some self-restraint. So they go to this like amusement park. And what was the god that was running the park? I can't say his name.
I have no idea.
I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it.
Hephaestus?
Not Festivus?
No, not Festivus.
That's what they should call him. Something that sounds like that. And that guy played Cain on Supernatural, and he was also in that Gallivant show.
Okay.
And he's also been in Lucifer. So he's been in like several things. I was like, oh, this actor. He's like, I'm doing the Leonardo DiCaprio point thing. Like, what am I? He was
barely on screen. Like, it's making me wonder, like, because they've cast fairly well-known actors in all of the God roles.
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda's like the producer.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder, like,
are
is some of the casting anticipatory in that these people are going to have bigger roles in future seasons, assuming that the show gets picked up, because like they've had some fairly big actors in some of these roles and they have barely like done nothing with them.
Yeah. I think
I'm not saying that guy's a big actor, but he's known, I guess, in the nerd circles, I suppose.
guess so.
I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't call him a big actor. I'd be like, oh, that guy's been in XYZ, XYZ, XYZ.
I think Aries is a wrestler.
Yeah, I looked him up. Aries is a wrestler. That episode was really good. And then it kind of did. I do think they are definitely setting up that there will be a potential romance in the future between Percy and Annabeth. Am I saying her name right?
It's Annabeth or Annabelle, and I don't know which.
Annabeth.
Come at me, Percy Jackson.
And
fanboys.
That episode was just really good. It was entertaining. Aries was a fun character.
Yeah, I liked it.
And I'm
was
like,
a fun character.
what do you want to bet? I'm supposed to just hate Aries in the books. It was the way, like, what's the little guy's name? I need to think of the name. With the little horns.
Oh, the satyr?
The satyr.
I don't remember.
We're doing so well right now. You're not even on cough medicine. But he kind of was like playing Aries a little bit.
High on life.
To get information from him.
Yeah.
So I liked their interactions. And then the next episode, which is the most recent one, that's where they go to the casino. That's where they meet Hermes. Is it Hermes? Hermes? Am I saying this right?
Yep.
Am I?
Hermes, yes.
Hermes. And I did kind of like the little references because they always say, like, in real life when you go in a casino, like in Vegas, that you lose track of, like, what time it is. I think they say they don't put clocks in casinos on purpose. So they kind of, like, make that reference. But, like, they actually were in. They didn't know how much time had passed by. They were not supposed to eat some of the flowers or something?
Well, that was like the thing was like that was the old thing was don't eat the flowers. But what was actually happening was he was just piping it in through the ventilation. So you couldn't help but ingest it once you got in there. So
they're still on their quest to get to the underworld, to find Hades, to get Zeus's thing back. I don't know.
The Master Bolt.
Master Bolt.
How could you forget it?
And obviously save Percy's mom. So now they've got like the magical taxi cab that they had to get out of there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the quest. So now they're in Vegas. What is it? It's under Los Angeles is where they have to get to.
Yeah.
So they started their journey in like Jersey. So I feel like we're not doing a great job selling the show right now, but it's really good. And I was really bummed. Like I kept trying to will another episode yesterday when we were trying to find something to watch because I'm definitely into it now. Like I want to know where the story goes. So if you're like, I have no idea what these two are talking about because they sound very rambly. They're trying to explain it. They can't pronounce the name of the gods, anything. Apparently gods are screwing everybody. Just take our word for it and just give it a go on Disney Plus. I think if we had just watched the first episode and had to wait a week, I would have been like, whatever about it. But because
I think the fact that we were able to watch basically the first 4 or 5 episodes consecutively, I think that's what saved this show for us.
Yeah,
personally.
And I think the casting is really good. Like these are good actors. And you run a gamble when you cast children as actors.
I mean, they look like children compared to the casting that you showed me for the movie they did about a decade ago. That, like, those would have passed as maybe, like, seniors in high school.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like, these actually look like 12-year-olds.
I believe that these kids are 12 years old, yes.
Yes. So the casting is really good. I think my biggest bummer right now is that we only have 2 episodes left. And I don't know if they've gotten a second season greenlit.
That's the biggest bummer right now with all the streaming shows. And I think we talked about this a little bit off podcast earlier this week. It's like,
well, one, you don't know if you get another show yet.
Well, but that always applied to regular TV. Stuff got canceled.
And I think Percy Jackson's doing pretty well from what I've seen.
But like, even if this is doing well and we know we're going to get a season 2, there's no guarantee that season 2 is going to drop in January 2025.
Yeah, and I think this actually...
Did this start in December?
December,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's no guarantee. This could go to 2026 before we see it again.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, are there age jumps in the Percy Jackson books? Like, that might work in their favor. Or are they going to look like, pushing 40 like the Stranger Things kids?
And I get that we've been through a pandemic and we've been through a writer's strike and all of that stuff changes schedules. But this stuff streaming was having trouble before all of that.
Stranger Things, again, I'm
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
use that
Stranger
as an
Things,
example.
when did that start? Like 2016?
Yeah, I'm going to use that as an example that even before the pandemic delayed their filming, it was always such a long wait between seasons. Like Joe Keery, who plays Steve, he is in his 30s now. I think he's at least 30, and he looks it like, and he's like I think Stranger Things, they can get by for their last season if they do. I think they're gonna have to do a major time jump. Like just the kids themselves, like even Dustin was the one that still looked the youngest on Stranger Things, and I've seen they have started filming, which I think they're saying 2026 or 2027, which is bizarre to me. Even he looks old now. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
The internet sleuths that have been going over those pictures are suggesting there's a time jump because some of the merchandise on set is like stuff from 1989, or like they show a movie theater. Actually the thing that makes the most sense to me is they show a movie theater that has Batman on.
Okay.
And that Batman, that's the first Batman with.
What year was it
that
they left off of?
I think they were in 85 or 86.
Oh, okay.
So it's gonna that's
they're still
3
gonna
or 4
look
or
a lot
5 years.
older than they should.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is a big gap between. I would assume not with the Percy Jackson books, but maybe there is. So that's something that they can run into some issues about the cat, because the kids, especially that age, and like that kid, his voice already feels like it's like sort of in puberty. Now he could be playing a lot younger, and maybe that's just his teenage voice. I don't know. But yeah, that's the biggest annoyance of streaming shows, is that the long waits. And it's like, if we get greenlit for season 2, awesome. We probably aren't going to get it in 2025. Maybe 2026 if we're lucky. And it sucks having to wait that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the tough part. Well, the tough part for me too is this is a show, and I'm not, again, for our listeners, I'm not being negative on this show. This is a show that once it's done, I will completely forget about it. And I will need a long and arduous previously on.
Well, see, I'm going to do the opposite of what you're going to do. When the show wraps, I
that's
intend
true.
to not only read the books to get caught up, but I want to compare all the mediums. So I'm going to go back after I read the books. The books are my plan first. Then I'm going to watch the movies.
How many movies were there?
I don't know. There was at least 2.
Okay.
I think they never made the last movie. Like they never were. I think. Don't quote me on that. Again, my Percy Jackson knowledge is very limited. But I'm really liking
for a short
the
time.
series.
Soon it will be very vast.
Soon I will be one of those people that can info dump Percy Jackson, and I'll like reflect back on these past podcasts and be like, wow, she was so incorrect about this.
I'm not going that way. I'm just going to tell everybody right now, I'm not joining her in this endeavor. I've got other things.
I mean, you don't have to, because I will fill you in on every detail.
That's true. She'll be on the couch reading the first book, and she will like text me, "Hey, this is different than the show," or something like that. And it's like, okay, I don't care.
But you should care.
Don't tell me what I should care about. We watched another new show. Actually, just before we started recording this podcast, we watched the first episode of Marvel's Echo. And if I had to summarize that episode in a quick way, it would be previously on other Marvel TV shows.
Yeah. And I'm glad they did that.
Oh, it was needed.
Because it was very helpful. Literally, like at one point I had Daniel pause it, and I'm like, how much time has passed by right now? And I was like, oh, like 30 minutes. We're 30 minutes into this thing, and we're still getting the explanation of who this character is, what's going on. And we really did decide to watch that right before we recorded, because we're like, we got to give these people another show. It can't just be about my medicine jug and Percy Jackson.
Yeah, and I'll give them credit. Like so there was some repeated stuff in there that we had seen already, but most of that was new stuff, background to that character that we didn't have in the Hawkeye show.
They always give the background, but then we did have some of the scenes. Okay, so to catch you guys up to speed, we saw Echo and Hawkeye. Did Hawkeye air in 2022 Christmas time? I think so.
I think so, yes.
I don't think it was 2021. I think it was 2022. And my main remembrances of Hawkeye are the song from the musical. I play it it's on my Spotify
Rogers,
playlist.
the musical?
Yes, I play it all the time. I can do this all day. But I do remember this character, Echo, vaguely. So they actually show the scene where Hawkeye does meet with her.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see that part. But even though they kind of catch you up on this, I'm going to say this right now. If you did not watch Hawkeye or you haven't watched Daredevil, which I haven't really watched Daredevil, but I think I'm fine because I've watched Hawkeye and I know enough from what I've read about like the villain. I call him Bowling Pin, but his name is Kingpin.
Kingpin is an all-time classic villain.
Yeah.
Do not dissuade him.
I'm not. What?
That's not disparage. Do not disparage him.
That's the wrong word there.
Do not disparage Kingpin.
That's the wrong
Kingpin
word.
is great, and the actor that plays Kingpin in the MCU
I
and
never
the
said he
Daredevil show
wasn't.
is amazing. And he was in Full Metal Jacket if you remember. And
I've never heard of that movie.
You need to step back.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, it's a Vietnam movie.
Yeah, that's not my thing. I wasn't disparaging the character. I'm just saying that I call him Bowling Pin instead of Kingpin because it's funny to see your reaction. I have to laugh about something. But I don't think you need to watch Daredevil. But I do feel like if you haven't watched Hawkeye, you're going to be a little confused. Even though the whole first episodes are previously on. That's the thing I think that you can make about these Marvel shows is that so many of them are just connected. Like some of them you can get by with watching one and not watching the other, but a lot of them they kind of are going off the assumption, and this even goes to the movies now, that you've watched the shows and you've seen the movies.
Yes.
I would like to say that when we did our What We're Looking Forward to in 2024, we didn't even mention this because we didn't know about it.
Yeah, they just kind of dropped
They did a horrible job marketing in this show. It's like they wanted us to forget about it. I mean, literally, I complained about the weekly release. All 5 episodes are sitting on Disney Plus ready. I finally started to see commercials for it like the day it dropped.
I didn't know it was out until I was just scrolling TikTok. I think I said this on the last episode, and there was a scene from it, and I was like, "What is this?" And then I realized it was out. So
it's like they wanted us to forget that they were doing this, which doesn't make sense because you've said that they're thinking about making another like Daredevil season on Disney Plus now.
They started filming the new Daredevil season today.
So it's like, why did you not market this, Disney? Like, what were you doing?
They don't know what they're doing right now.
I'm excited
these
to see
projects
the next
get
episode.
greenlit so far in the past, and then they're so far into production when things change, and so instead of like going through and changing the production, they just say, "Okay, just keep doing it. We'll figure it out."
Like, I am excited to see the next episode. I'm not going to say that this was, again, it really was just a catch up. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was fine.
Yeah.
I want to see Daniel's thing. What do you think? I say it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with
If I
these
didn't
characters.
have to record this podcast for you fine people, I probably would have been like, okay, let me at least see the next episode.
The second episode is probably what we would have done, yeah.
But instead, we're talking to you guys because we love you guys. A little background on the character. Is her name? What is her name?
Maya.
Maya. Okay, why is it called Echo? I was ready to say.
I don't know. Maybe that's her superhero name. They never say it, but
I'm thinking. Now, Maya is deaf, and she's obviously deaf as like a child.
Yes.
We get that background, so that's not something that like happened to her later in life. She was a deaf child. I get what they're doing, but I'm gonna need them to stop. So they've already done it like 3 times in this first episode where it'll show her from her, like she'll be like in the room and clearly like cop cars, sirens, explosions. So you see that, but you don't hear it. They're like, and I'm like, I get it. She can't hear. She's deaf. Doing it once is an artistic thing. Doing it 2 more times in the same episode, I'm like, I understand this. And right now, from where my ears are all clogged, obviously I'm not deaf, I'm having like my volume at like 95 to begin with. And I'm like, I just know that it's going to be a really loud explosion when they show like, so we can hear it. And I'm not going to be able, that's going to annoy me if they do that the whole season.
I bet I have news for you. I guarantee you they're going to keep doing that.
But do you agree with me that it's like, okay, we get you being artsy. We get it. They did it some with Hawkeye too, with his hearing issues.
I don't mind it that much, other than the fact that you have to keep the volume high because you're still clogged up, and so it is blowing me out a little bit. But
well, it's like they're like I get like the whole like artistic aspect of it. Do it one time. Don't keep doing that. We get it. Like I don't want to focus on the fact that she's deaf because that doesn't define her. You know what I mean?
No, I understand.
It's like I mean, if probably, I think it'd be interesting if we went back and watched that episode and actually recorded how much dialogue was actually said. It would probably be very little.
Yeah, it was a lot of sign language and
it shows you how well like you can do a show or movie. Like I feel like we've watched other shows and movies that have done similar things where I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that there was no like speaking because it was so like invested in what was going on. Do you think anybody else, like the Hawkeye, that was a previous scene from his show that we've already seen that part before?
I don't think Jeremy Renner filmed anything for this show.
Do you think anybody, I doubt Florence is going to show up.
I would be surprised. I'm not entirely
Haley Steinfeld, do you think she's going to show up?
I'm not entirely sure that the Daredevil character shows up again past what we saw. What we saw in this first episode was a flashback, but that was a new scene. Yeah. That we hadn't seen before, but I don't know that he
Do you think Haley Steinfeld's going to show up?
I don't think so.
That was in Hawkeye. Like, so anybody, I think we'll probably
all
see
5
Daredevil.
episodes are out, and they've been out for a week.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen any spoilers.
That's
so
right. The internet's always going to spoil stuff.
I'm going to tell you right now, that stuff's not
I feel
happening.
like we could see our chances to see Daredevil at least one more time would be good.
Probably.
Especially, I mean, I don't know, since they're not marketing their shows well.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I would know about it because the Daredevil fans are few, but they are hardcore.
I just need to give Daredevil another chance. Sometimes
You do.
I was so bored.
I watched season 1 without you, and past the episodes that you got, you didn't even meet Kingpin. That's how little you got into Daredevil season 1.
I liked him on She-Hulk.
Yeah, you didn't even get in. You didn't
Not
even
Kingpin,
meet Kingpin.
Daredevil.
Yeah.
When he showed up because he was just so much more fun. He was so melancholy and
But what I'm saying is you didn't even get far enough into the Daredevil TV show on Netflix to meet the villain.
Does he continue to be melancholy? Oh, I'm so dark and broody, because that just gets on my nerves. Is that like the whole? Because that's not how he was when he hooked up with She-Hulk.
Yeah, and most of the Daredevil fans hate that version of Daredevil.
Well, I like that version of Daredevil. I guess when he's getting lucky,
around with She-Hulk.
He's a little more excited. Yeah, I just don't. Maybe it might just not be the show for me. I like Jessica Jones. She's kind of woe as me, but in a different way.
I think you should give it another shot and see how you think. And
I'll say this though: the first season of Jessica Jones, gold. Second season, I haven't been able to finish the third season for when did the third season come out? It was before the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We have not been able to finish that third season.
It was rough.
But the first season of Jessica Jones was one of my favorites. Probably, if I were to rank the Marvel shows, not just the Disney Plus ones, but all of them together, I would put in David Tennant play. That's my favorite. Like you say, Kingpin is as good as. Would you agree that David Tennant's
David Tennant's up there, yes. And
he was my favorite Marvel villain ever. And I do think the shows, again, I always talk about this. It's like Thanos as a villain, even though they build him up, didn't do much for me in the Marvel movies. But when you have the show and you can take the time to really build up the villains, I think that's why. And I know David Tennant's a great actor, but I think that's why that villain was so good. And I've heard people say the same thing about Kingpin, even though people like him in the comics or whatever.
No, he's great in the show too.
That show sprinkles it in, and you really get to know their motivations more.
Yes, for sure. So
I don't know if I should tell you watch Echo or don't watch Echo. If you like the Marvel shows and you want some new content, as we were kind of starved for content right now in the year 2024, as stuff was put on hold with the strikes, I'd say give it a go.
And if you're really still not sure, probably by next episode we'll have finished.
Yeah.
Because we only got 4 episodes left, and
we'll be able to tell you. But my other thing about Marvel shows, if you're you know what, I listen to these guys talk. I haven't listened to watched a single Marvel show. I like the movies. Go back and watch Loki. Seasons 1 and 2.
Yes.
If you're going to watch any Marvel show, watch Loki.
Hey, can we watch the Marvels?
I think we can. It's available now to rent or buy.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't looked it up when it's going to drop on Disney Plus or not.
I don't know anything about the movie except for its post-credit scene.
And don't tell me what that is. Don't spoil that for me. I really wanted to see it. It was barely in our theater.
Yeah.
It was in our theater for maybe a couple weeks, and then it was gone. I'd say soon we should be able to get it. Maybe we'll just rent it one night.
Yeah, we'll just rent it.
and then if I look it up, which I'm not going to do that now because then we'd have dead air, but I could look at it, like, I don't know, I haven't heard yet without looking it up when it's going to come to Disney Plus.
Okay.
But I've been known to get impatient, be like, decide that I'm going to rent or even buy something, and then literally 2 weeks later it comes to Disney Plus.
Speaking of things, now we're going to move on to the segment of the show called Hope Watches TV. Hey, you want to give everybody an update on your Friday Night Lights rewatch? Everybody, just take a moment and think to yourself, last episode, 7 days ago, she had just started season 3.
Yes.
All right, Hope.
Well, we put a poll up on Instagram. Did Hope finish all 5 seasons of Friday Night Lights already? Yes, she did. I did finish it. I have seen this show before. I have rewatched, I think, the first season again, but I hadn't done like a full rewatch. Like, I had not seen the last season of Friday Night Lights like since it aired, like when I watched it like originally. And being sick contributed to me flying through these. Now, keep in mind, the last few seasons, there's only like 13 episodes. They're still long episodes, though. So it's not like I was watching like 22 plus seasons. Thank you very much. Or 22 plus episodes per season.
It's just that when you started this on New Year's Day.
It was New Year's
Eve.
Eve.
New Year's Eve. So what, 21, it took you 21 days? And we took a vacation during the, but it took you 21 days to finish it, and we took a vacation through there.
What do you do when you're sick?
Roll in my bed in agony.
Well, I was in agony, but then when I can't breathe, I watched, my comfort of Coach Eric Taylor and Tammy Taylor, and I'm just going to say, I want to start over again. I love it so much. Friday Night Lights is one of the best shows ever. The first season, again, I've already said this before, a masterpiece. The second season, I think, would have been a little better than it was, but that was impacted by the first writer's strike back then. Then it kind of rebounds in season 3. Then season 4 is where they kind of have the shift because Eric Taylor is no longer the coach of the Dillon Panthers because of some politics with J.D. McCoy's dad. I hate Joe McCoy. And so they end up doing some redistricting. So he coaches the East Dillon Lions. So you brought in, by the way, I just like to say, I always bring this up. I'm like, I discovered Michael B. Jordan, or more like the people from Friday Night Lights did. That's like one of the first shows he did. And I remember watching the Creed movies recently, like I think the most recent one. And I'm like, Michael B. Jordan hasn't aged at all. I'm like, he looks exactly the same. He's just a little more buff. Oh, you came in for a couple episodes because Michael B. Jordan's in season 4 and 5. He's like the main character. He's so young. He looks like a little kid. And I'm like, okay, I guess he has aged. He still has the same face, but he looks very much like just very young.
Yeah, and I guess some of that is like he is like a scrawny kid in the show.
He hasn't
and
bulked up
like,
yet.
For all those, like for Black Panther and for the Creed
and
movies,
wasn't he in
up,
the other Fantastic Four that we never saw?
Yeah, he was Johnny Flame.
Okay. He's the one that Chris Evans played.
Mm-hmm, yes.
In the other, yeah. So I was trying, when we were talking about that, I was trying to think, I was like, there's something else that he was in that was kind of a big deal. But Michael B. Jordan's a great actor, and I feel like the people, when they were casting him for stuff, had to have watched him on Friday Night Lights because he brought that character. Like Vince, the quarterback, kind of starts off kind of cocky, like, he's obviously had a rough life. Dad's in prison. Mom has some drug problems. So he's kind of rough, and his growth, and he just really evolves on that show under Coach Eric Taylor's tutelage in the East Dillon Panthers, and really becomes a leader towards the end of the season. And I felt like he acted the emotional scenes very well, and he brought a lot of range. And I see, especially for the Creed movies, I see a lot of like some of the similarities. So I'm always like, yes, I always tell people I discovered my boo, Hayden Christensen, as well, because I used to watch him on this Canadian soap opera called Higher Ground. And then suddenly Higher Ground like had to end quickly. Next thing I know, I'm like, why is the guy from Higher Ground in all these previews for this dumb Star Wars movie? It was before I was a Star Wars fan and an Anakin lover and an Anakin stan. And then so finally when I watched it, I remember talking to you when we were dating. I was like, I discovered him. In a little Canadian show. And isn't it weird that it was called Higher Ground? That's what the show was called. But I'm always like, yeah, I discovered my. Well, I'm like hopped up on my cough syrup, and I look over at you, and I'm like, Daniel, because Daniel watched a couple of these Friday Night Lights episodes with me, and I said, I was like, I discovered Michael B. Jordan.
All by yourself.
But it's so good. It made me so mad at how Eric Taylor was treated.
Can I ask you a question? Speaking of Coach Eric Taylor,
I love Tammy Taylor, his wife. What?
I didn't watch the series finale with you. So
oh my gosh, the series finale. That's how you do a finale, baby.
Did he smile?
He smiles.
Because I never once recall. He just seems like the grumpiest, most irritated person that I've ever seen on this show.
I love him.
Like every scene he is in, he is either upset or exasperated or mad at somebody.
He smiles all the time.
Okay.
But every scene that you're in, I mean, he deals with a lot of frustrations. I like his grumpy demeanor.
Oh, okay.
In my rewatch, Buddy Garrity
it.
is one of my favorite characters now. He starts off in season 1. He's one of the big boosters. And he did annoy me on my original run of the show, and then I started to like him more and more. But because I knew on my rewatch, how Buddy Garrity was going to evolve as a character, I was really amused, not annoyed when he would do stuff in season 1. Love that. I like the finale, the series finale, is that's how you write a finale. Perfect on every level. I'm going to have to go back to our TV takes, and I know I would still consider Mad Men probably the best show ever for me, but I'm going to have to put Friday Night Lights up there in my top 3 of shows because it's just so good, so much heart, so much passion.
So much shaky cam.
Oh my gosh, you've got to stop it. And I just love all the characters, and it's just so much heart. And the finale was so good. I find myself when they have their games, rooting for them as if I'm watching a real football game. I find myself shouting at the TV as if these are real people. They're my friends. So yeah, I think even if I hadn't gotten sick, I would have moved quickly through the show because when you have your little video game time downstairs, I usually try to find something to watch. But because I have been sick, it's pretty much, Tim Riggins, Texas Forever has been kind of, caring for me right now. Tim Riggins, I'm back in my Tim Riggins era, by the way. Texas Forever.
Okay.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose, baby.
Okay, so quickly before you run out of breath,
I'm about ready to
what
sneeze.
we do in the shadows.
So...
yeah, I don't know where to start on this
I don't
last
even know where to
episode
start.
we just watched.
I don't know if we watched another episode before that since the last time we podcast, but I'm again, the cough syrup decongestant combo I have, let's just say I make sure to take it after work because it does make me very sleepy. It works like a charm. It's like a magic. Whatever they put in the jug is clearly magical. And so I had just taken I'm half hour into taking a hit of it.
Yeah.
And
this was probably
the weirdest
season
episode 5, I could have watched.
Episode 7. Laszlo has been working to try and help Guillermo out
Gizmo.
with his half vampire, half human thing. And he finally gets to the conclusion of his work, and he brings Guillermo into his laboratory, and there stand 5 or 6 animals
hybrids
that have been hybridized with Guillermo.
A dog.
There's a dog.
Guillermo.
There's a goat.
There's a fish.
There's a fish. There's frogs. And Laszlo's like, okay, now you got to kill him. And it's just and
they're calling Guillermo daddy. Because suddenly Guillermo's like, wait a minute, you can hear what I'm saying? You understand me?
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at Daniel and I'm like, okay, is this episode weirder than usual for this
show?
Or am I just really drugged up? And he's like, no, it's pretty weird. So the way they resolve that is Guillermo takes them to be emotional support animals at a senior citizen center.
Yes, that's correct.
But he keeps the fish.
He keeps the fish in the koi pond.
And so Nadja now knows about Guillermo.
Yes, everybody knows
Gizmo.
Nando.
Does Colin Robinson doesn't know?
I'm pretty sure he said he knows and just doesn't care.
Oh, yeah, I think he did say that.
He made an offhanded remark about it.
And Colin Robinson also did reference that he had dreams that Laszlo used to care for him and change his diapers.
And wipe his butthole.
Yeah. This show is just crazy. Can I just say, though, that some of the references the show has made, this most recent episode aside, I'm like, Daniel, do I get up in the middle of the night, drive, and live a secret life as a writer for the show? Because sometimes it's like they're in my head. Like some of the stuff they've referenced and said, like they've had a lot of Frasier references.
They have.
There was something they referenced. I can't even remember what it was now. I wish I would have written it down. Where you and I both just looked at each other, and I'm like, okay, this show is like written by me. It's like in the brain of Hope.
It's our type of humor, right up our alley.
And they clearly watch
way.
the same type of TV shows that we watch and movies.
Maybe they're we can contact them and they can become a fan of We Watch TV.
And you said they have started filming the new season?
Yes.
So hopefully
I don't know how long it takes them to put one of these together, but it'll be good to have, but sad as well since it is the last.
I still want a Nadja doll.
I know you do.
So do you think this season's going to end with Nandor finding out about?
Yeah, that's that's going to have to be the conclusion. Is he's going to find out, and then the cliffhanger will be his reaction to said.
And do we still think Guillermo's transition is because of the Van Helsing blood? Like that's always been my theory about why.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I still think that's the case. I wonder if maybe he'll end up as like a daywalker kind of situation where he can go around outside like people and do that stuff, but be a vampire. I don't know.
It just, if you're looking for something zany, weird, and funny, but like in the tune of like a Parks and Rec type show, check out What We Do in the Shadows. I think it's on FX, but we stream it on Hulu.
Yeah, all of the seasons are on Hulu, so.
Also, in another segment of I Watch TV with Hope, I've been watching the Natalia Speaks on HBO Max. Is it Max or HBO Max?
It's just Max now.
Max. Okay, no one's ever going to call it that. If you have not looked up the story of Natalia Grace, do so because it is crazy. I had actually, how sometimes YouTube will recommend like a video to you. Let's say you're like doom scrolling at like 1 a.m. and it's like, hey, listen to this. And I like listened to the story about her and like learned about it randomly like a couple years ago. And I'm like, well, this is bizarre. And now they did this documentary. They have 2 seasons and I'm in the first season, but I think the second season is where they start to interview her more. And y'all, it's a trip. Every time I'm trying to talk to Daniel about who Gypsy Rose Blanchard is and Natalia Grace, he's like, who are you talking about? I'm like, do you not like watching like stuff like this?
No. Absolutely not.
I just find it. If I want to know if you guys watch that, I want you to tell me what you think about like I think, right, and this is my opinion, that her adoptive parents were insane. I think they were crazy. I think they were abusive. But I also think that she has had so much trauma that she's not quite mentally all the way there either. And I don't think we're ever going to know the truth of what
sounds
went
like
down.
a good watch. Sounds like a real enjoyable time. I like to be entertained.
It is entertaining. It's interesting.
I see real life stuff. It just depresses me when I see that stuff. Like at least if it's a depressing real like TV show, it's fictional and I know it's fictional and I know all this trauma is made up. Mm-hmm. When I'm watching reality stuff like this.
You don't like serial killer podcasts
and
either,
I don't like serial killer podcasts.
I can fall asleep to serial killer podcasts.
All that stuff I just don't like. I don't like it.
I find serial killer podcasts like soothing. Do with that what you will. But speaking of death,
I'm gonna.
Are you ready to transition into the next part?
It's time for the OC rewatch.
We watched one episode since we last did it, since we last talked about this last week. But it was quite the humdinger of an episode.
I'm standing up.
I'm just gonna say that. Okay, so Johnny, the character, I had already told Daniel. I don't like
Little Gianni. I promise you, folks, for better or worse, that's the last time I make that joke.
And watch Everybody Loves Raymond. One random episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, by the way, to even get that reference. But I knew that, obviously I know that Johnny died, and I don't know. I think I was kind of like, oh, well, he's going to, maybe not be around more, and you kind of drugged it out of me. You're like, oh, does he die? And I'm like, maybe. And I couldn't remember how he died. So Daniel and I were talking, and I said, ooh. I was like, it because I kind of scrolled through ahead on Hulu to see what episodes were coming up with. I said, I think Johnny's going to die in this next episode. And you're like, do you remember how he dies? And I said, I think he like falls off a cliff or something, but I can't remember. And Daniel deadpan looks at me, points at the episode, and goes, "And the episode is called The Cliffhanger."
You got to be kidding me.
Are you serious?
Writers of this show, you've got to be kidding me. Now
wow. 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 Did they have to go that hard with the name? And I get it. Like when shows end on a cliffhanger and he falls and you're like, oh, is he dead or not? I feel like the character that kind of confirms if he's not dead, he's seriously mangled.
The way the reactions were from Marissa and Ryan doesn't leave much of a cliffhanger for me. In my mind, I know exactly what happened at the bottom of that cliff. That is a cold episode name. Now, I do want to note, as stupid of a name as that is, let's not forget that in 2006, or whenever this episode aired, like nobody knew this was the name of the episode. Unless you're reading the TV guide.
Yeah.
Because it's not like the Star
TV
Trek.
guide.
They don't like put the name of the episode before it goes on. You know, it's nowhere in the credits. As far as anybody knows, this was just episode number whatever, and they don't know what the name of the episode is. But
did they have to go that hard with the naming?
They really didn't. They shouldn't have. And it really was abrupt too.
And I couldn't remember because I've only rewatched. Okay, so I've seen the third season once in its original entirety airing, and that was when it aired originally. And I've seen anytime when I would try to do an OC rewatch before, I just get so frustrated at season 3. I couldn't remember if Johnny actually did it on purpose or if it was an accident. I thought it was an accident, but I knew he was I thought for some reason, I guess I thought he was on antidepressants, then he was on pills. He was just drunk, right?
That's correct, yes.
And I couldn't piece that together. And the character of Johnny definitely annoyed me way more in the original airing than it did this time. It still kind of bothered me, but I feel like I was just so annoyed that when this first aired, another just foil in Ryan and Marissa's relationship, that I was probably oh my gosh, this character annoys me so much. So no, I do not think that Johnny is more annoying than Oliver at all. Oliver is still the most annoying character of the men, in my opinion.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I feel a great sympathy for Johnny's character.
I do.
I do have to say though, I really do feel like it was very abrupt, and I know it's the OC.
Well, I mean, when you fall off a cliff, it's an abrupt way to go. I don't know. Oh, it's not funny.
I mean, just the escalation and getting rid of that character, and I know it's the OC, and they do that with every character except for Zach. That they just bring them in, then they have them do their thing, and then they get rid of them, except for Zach.
Boring old Zach.
It just seemed like they had more to do with it, but obviously I don't think. It's the repercussions for the rest of the season are going to be dealing with that.
Yeah, it's going to be the fallout. Do you remember Volchuk, Johnny's nemesis?
Oh, the Transformer?
Yeah, so he's going to come back into play, and Marissa's going to go down a really dark path. I think I think this might have been our last really nice Marissa Ryan scene that we had right before Caitlin called and was like, hey, I'm really scared. Johnny's acting crazy right now. So this is definitely going to be kind of Marissa's downward spiral to, we ultimately know how she ends, which is another reason that makes season 3 so hard, is knowing what happens to the fate of that character. But I still don't love the character of Johnny though. I don't like him. I find him a very sad character, but I think it was just could the writers ever just give Ryan and Marissa a minute?
No.
No, of course not.
Certainly not.
Not much going on with Seth is still doing the pot.
Ganja.
And
its purest form.
Summer she finds out about it, is annoyed about it. So that's they were just kind of minor characters in this last episode. I still have no recollection of Sandy's storyline at the Newport group with that guy.
Oh yeah,
something's going to happen.
The adult
though.
storylines that you never paid attention to as a kid.
Clearly not.
Now we're trying to figure out why I don't know. It seems they really do feel like
they put the adults in the back burner a little bit.
The first 2 seasons, the adults had just as much storyline as
Yeah.
the kids, and it seems like this season the kids have really kind of taken full front, and Sandy and Kirsten and their stuff is in the background.
I'm still enjoying Julie. I really like Julie and Dr. Roberts.
Yeah,
I wish that ship would have lasted. I
like them together. Actually, I don't know how much longer it goes.
I don't know how much longer.
Knowing this show, they'll break up next episode.
Trailer Park Julie. I don't know how much longer she lasts, but it's my favorite Julie Cooper era. There was always a thing where I would, like, when we first started watching on our OC rewatch, and Julie is just so annoying in this first couple episodes. And I'm like, how does this woman end up becoming like one of my like top 3 characters from the OC? And she will screw up several more times until that series finale, but she's a good character. Julie Cooper, she's a good foil, but she's funny. I think she's at her best when she's just herself and she's not trying to be like, you know, the Newport elite. Like, that's why I think I like this version of her so much. She's like unapologetically. She even tells Kirsten, like, you're not manipulative like me. You can't do this. Because Kirsten was trying to get, like, Julie to be able to get together with Summer's dad by, like, setting him up on a date. So Kirsten, she's like, oh, Kirsten, that's a little manipulative for you. And then obviously it didn't work very well. And Julie's like, let me be the manipulative one. Because that's how I am. And I really do you not agree with me? She's a good character.
Oh, yeah, definitely a good character, whether she's playing a
villain
or an actual protagonist. So.
She's funny.
Yeah,
I think something is going to go down with Kirsten. I feel like right now Kirsten is just, she's got rid of, 7 of 9, her rehab buddy that was trying to take advantage of her. And she's just kind of been in this supportive role. And she's been doing really well out of rehab. I feel like, I don't remember if it happens or not, but I feel like there might be a relapse coming. Like she might fall off the wagon. Because right now, Kirsten has, like, no drama. In the show, it's like we want no happiness, no joy.
The parents are kind of in that back seat. Like, Sandy and Kirsten are in the back seat even behind Julie's drama right now.
Yeah.
Like, they are really in the, just kind of, their plot points get a little bit of play if we have time for them.
I'll definitely say, now, Reddit has a very active OC group. And I couldn't really remember. I knew, like, Johnny and Caitlin sort of had a thing. People are crazy. Everybody, and to the point where I was like, did Caitlin tell him to go up on the cliff? Am I remembering this wrong? Which she does not tell him to go up there. People blame Caitlin for Johnny's death. That's how insane the internet is. When Caitlin is still a teenager, yes, was clearly, trying to get under Marissa's skin and to hang out with Johnny. But Caitlin didn't tell him to go up on the cliff. Like, yes, they were drinking. I don't think, and then when Caitlin realized, like, okay, he's scaring me, she did the right thing. She called Marissa for help. So I think it's crazy that fans, like people our age and older, blame Caitlin for the death of Johnny. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch.
Like, and I'm sitting there, and like, I was to the point where I'm like watching that intently to be like, does Caitlin tell him to go up there? Does Caitlin tell him to like kill himself or something? Like, I was trying to piece that together, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand that. Like, I get it, Caitlin's kind of like our quote unquote villain right now, but it's about, we've talked about how this season's a little depressing. Buckle in.
Oh, I have no doubt.
It's about to get even worse.
Yeah, I can see the writing on the wall.
Because we're going to have the fallout from Johnny's death. Seth and Summer. Obviously, Summer knows that Seth blew off his interview with the college, so they're going to have problems. I went, no peace. Only problems.
Well, I think that about does it for this week, folks.
Yes.
We're trying to catch up on a few things. We're trying to get ourselves in a healthy place.
I'm really ready to wrap this up so I can blow my nose.
Yeah, we did finally we got a release date for the Star Wars Bad Batch Season 3. That's going to be February 21st, so I'm excited about that.
Final
probably
season.
Probably nobody else. Final season, yes, unfortunately, the final season. And then, I don't know, I'm thinking about maybe going ahead and catching up with Star Trek Discovery so that I can watch it in May when the final season of that comes out. That just seems like...
It'll be like your side boo to Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not getting any Strange New Worlds this year, so I got to have something. I guess I need to catch up on Lower Decks, too. But, hey, make sure if you are listening to this and you're this deep into the episode that you tune in next week, because next week's episode will be our 1-year anniversary. And
oh, wow.
Neither of us have planned a single thing for it yet, but we're going to. In the next week, we're going to plan, and we're going to have a nice, fun episode.
Or we won't.
Yeah, and if we won't, just forget if I said all this. But and it's come celebrate with us next week because we're both very proud of the fact that we're making it to a year.
It's been fun.
It's something that we really enjoyed doing weekly, and we hope that you've enjoyed listening along with us. And with all of that said, thank you for listening to this episode, and we will see you next week.
And I'm going to go blow my nose now. Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope and Daniel on Instagram at We Watch TV Podcast. Drop us a line if you like the show, have a question, or a recommendation. You can find Hope on Twitter at Lil Runner and Daniel on Twitter at The Real Hobo Dan. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.